We've been going through this warrior series to investigate what it's like to live as a warrior. Okay, so today what I want to share with you is honoring your warrior spirit. Okay, there's a quote that comes from Rick Fields' book, The Code of the Warrior, a really great book. And the quote goes like this: Times of crisis call forth the warrior. Okay, so I don't have to convince you that the world seems like it's in crisis. You look around you, you got climate change happening, you got political unrest. Uh, you don't have to believe, for example, that humans are contributing to climate change to know that it's hotter out there and that we have these more extreme weather events. So you interact with the world. You're part of it. So you interact with the world, and the chaos of the world is impacting your life. And throw into that the usual life stressors like maybe a divorce or a separation or death of a friend or loved one, friend or family. It just creates a lot of stress and crisis in your life. Yet that's the reality, right? So we can't just ignore it. We have to find a way to work with it. So we do it by calling forth the warrior, like Rick Fields says. And we find a way to honor our warrior spirit. Well, what is the warrior spirit? It's this part of us that has a desire to grow. Like, just look at the world around you. It's anything that's living is growing. Plants grow, animals grow, we grow physically also. But mentally, we grow when we can be courageous to meet the challenges presented in our world and in our lives. Now, we can learn something from traditional warriors, like soldiers that go into combat. They're trained to move toward the threat, toward the enemy. Okay, that's their job, that's their responsibility. And they fight against the enemy, and they compete with the enemy so that they can survive and our country can survive. There's another way of looking at warriors beyond the traditional definition, and that comes from, you might say, calling it a life warrior. Uh, an example of that is Chogyam Trungpa's book, Shambhala. He was a Buddhist teacher that brought Buddhist teachings to the U.S. A number of decades ago. Well, Trungpa says that warriors are people that aren't afraid of themselves. Okay, they're not afraid of themselves. So the life warrior takes the inner journey, looking inward for the challenges that come up. Uh, we fail, we make mistakes, we have a lot of limiting tendencies. They're not necessarily nice to look at, and so a life warrior takes the approach to honor those and find a way to learn from them. And their approach is a little bit different. Instead of competing, it's collaboration. And instead of fighting against the enemy, here you're fighting with those limiting aspects of yourself. There's another series of warrior literature books, you might say, that comes from Carlos Castaneda. And know some of you don't like this author, uh, but you can learn a lot about what it means to use attention, develop awareness, and what it means to live as a life warrior, you might say. In Tales of Power, Don Juan, who is Carlos Castaneda's mentor and teacher, he says something very profound that I found very, very helpful. And you may have heard this before, but let me express it here. Um, the difference between ordinary people and warriors is that warriors see everything that happens as a challenge, whereas ordinary people see everything that happens as a blessing or a curse. Okay, so what he's pointing out here is that ordinary people equate comfort and being blessed uh, with something that's good. A good outcome is something that makes you comfortable, and so you feel blessed because of that. A bad outcome, where you feel cursed, is where uh, your life is full of stress. Okay, so this is like a victim approach, to challenges and to life, really, because you make yourself dependent or reactive to the external situation. If you're succeeding and everything's comfortable in your life, then you feel good about yourself. If you're failing and struggling, then you can feel bad about yourself. So that's not an empowering way to approach living your life. So what life warriors do, they find a way to collaborate with these stressors, these things that are coming up in their internal journey, and fight with it, in a sense. Your fighting really is just exerting effort, okay? And if you can do that, then you're actually not just surviving like the traditional warriors do in combat, you're thriving, okay? Your life thrives because you're using the material of the inner journey, to grow and expand and learn and understand more about who you are and how you fit into this world. Okay. Now, climbing is a great vehicle for this self-exploration, and it kind of combines these two, the external journey and the internal journey. Climbing, by its very nature, you're choosing to go up into stress, challenging yourself toward a goal that's inspiring to you. So that stress, you're using that external environment of climbing to do your self-inquiry work, your self-exploration. So at least you can choose to. So you can ask yourself, well, when you fall off a climb and you get frustrated, for example, why? Why do you get frustrated? Because you want something for nothing? You want that piece of learning for no effort? So we all react that way. I've reacted that way. And when you know better, you become more aware of what's this reactive tendency, this victim tendency, then you can act more warrior-like. So we want our lives to matter. We want our lives to matter. And we have a definition of how we define a warrior on our website. And that definition is, warriors are people who have made a conscious choice to live life courageously, exploring their inner and outer worlds so that when they die, they leave the world a better place because they have lived. Okay, so there's a lot there. We can unpack it. So, conscious choice. You have some consciousness and not just being reactive to the situation. Awareness and consciousness is a precursor for being able to do anything different than your habitual way. Choice. You need to make a choice to move in the direction of those stressors, those things that you don't like to see. Exploring the inner and outer journey. You use the material in the external world, the natural stressors that are there, for exploring your inner world, your reactivity to it or your responsiveness to it. To leave the world a better place because you have lived. Like, you want your life to matter, right? You want your life to matter. Well, it's going to matter if you make a contribution, if you can serve the world beyond just your individual self. That creates a life that matters. So if you can develop your warrior approach to life, to these challenges, then you're going to be better able to deal with the crises that are occurring in the world, that are occurring in your life. And that's what we're exploring in this series of lessons. There are going to be quite a few of them. So I want to leave you with a little tool. Got it right here. So first of all, awareness. You need to be aware that you're reacting to stress. Okay. You can't do anything without awareness as your first step. Number two, pause. Don't do anything. You need to pause so that you can develop more awareness about what's going on and how you're going to do the next step, which is choice. Making a choice to engage the stress. And then point number four is take action. Find a small action step that you can take to engage it. Awareness, pause, choice to move in the direction of stress, and then small action steps to move in that direction. That helps you honor your warrior spirit so that you can, create a life that matters.